Tonight's Modern Men is powered by the Hero Initiative. Interested in becoming a hero? Go to heroinitiative.org to see how you can be a hero to comic creators in need. All right, what's going on, guys? It's Monday, 10 p.m. Eastern. That means it's time for Modern Men Monday. I know most of our favorite shows of the week, but man, we got a special guest in the house. We got a very important read for the modern age of comics, and I think we got a really fun topic to talk about tonight. So before I introduce the panel, I need to get into this chat because they're already lining up in the chat, ready to be introduced. We got... He's clanging. He's banging. It's the immortal Biggie Shack, dude. He says, this is my favorite series as a kid. Hey, yeah, man. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight. We got Fish Tropic. What's going on, man? Nice to see my first subscriber ever in the chat tonight. We got Scott Evans. What's going on, Scott Evans? All the hand symbols ever. There you go. Love Scott Evans, seeing him in the chat. I know he likes to do his homework. We got the Great Legend Show. What's going on, Ledge? Nice to see you out and about tonight. I know he's been looking forward to Modern Men all week, and I'm afraid I've got some bad news. We got Chris Barrett in the chat. Now it's officially a Comic Core show. Thank goodness Chris Barrett is here. I was getting a little worried that he wasn't first. We got Samuel David in the chat, ready with his cup of coffee in the morning. Oh, yeah. And then we got the Mastodon. What's going on, Donnie? I know Legend.
Donnie.
Some Donnie. One of the best.
Donnie.
Down there in the basement, we'll go around the clock. We got, oh my God, look at that beard. We got ComicManAndy and his beard, and it's been in containment. Andy has the beard.
This beard is virus-free.
It's the way to be.
That's good. Make sure you sanitize that comb. Next up, we got the self-appointed pick master, DruManchu. Drew.
I am not the self-appointed pick master. I'm just the pick master. It says pick master, but I'm pretty sure I'm the pick master because it's 4 weeks in a row. We are reading the DruManchu pick.
Yeah, if you guys have been, that's the current one. Good. So if you guys have been living under a rock, this is the screen capture 10 p.m. Friday. We close off the voting every week now. We had 63 votes, actually 62 because I voted Monsters so I could see what the vote looked like under my sign-on. But it looks like Death of Superman had 27% of 63 votes. So a big thanks for that turnout, guys. It looks like Death of Superman first, of course, and then second place, Spider-Man Life Story. So not next week, but the following week. We'll put that back on since it finished second place and give it a second chance in the poll. But we got our announcement. Actually, we'll go on announcement now before I introduce Chad. For those of you like X-Men, tune in next week. It's going to be the X-Men special. So next week, any read on our panel will be X-Men related. So we're going to have 5 X-Men books for you guys to choose from. That panel or that vote will go up at 11 p.m. Eastern tonight, so look out for that on the community tab. So happy to introduce that. But we have a special guest on Modern Men tonight. I know he absolutely loves Death of Superman as much as I do. So as soon as this won, I'm like, will you be on the show with us? He's like, I would hoping yes. Comic Core Chad. What's going on, Chad?
Hey, man, I'm excited about this. And Biggie says it well. He says, I got this book memorized. My favorite part is when Doomsday sees the wrestling promo. Absolutely, man. This is one of the books that started my collection. I'm so stoked.
Got you covered.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Oh, man, you're awesome.
I love that part, too.
But, yeah, I mean, tonight we're going to be talking our top 5 favorite cartoons. We're each going to pick our cartoons, talk about them, and we'll see who didn't pick Batman or X-Men, or we probably all did. Spoilers, probably. But yeah, the big story tonight, in my opinion, Superman, the Death of Superman. This is the book that got me into comics. So I've told the story a million times. I guess for the sake of the show, I'll tell it one more time. So I had no idea about comics, if they existed or anything like that. till the Christmas this book came out. My parents bought a fourth printing of Superman 75 while they're waiting at the grocery store line, and they decided to put that in my Christmas stocking that Christmas. The only other familiarity I had with comic books was probably the '89 Batman movie, and probably the Super Friends TV show and the action figure line from the '80s. That's the only inkling idea I had of comic books at the time. So I pulled this out of my stocking, and my parents were like, yeah, that's probably going to be like a big collectible or something one day because they're in antiquing and stuff. And so I got Superman 75, and I was just blown away by it. It's all super heavy action. Luckily, my 10-year-old brain could process all 22 splash panels is all it really is at the end of the day. But it's like watching an action movie on the page. But I've rambled on enough. Andy, I want to know your first impressions because I know you probably didn't read this when it originally came out.
Yeah. As a first-time reader, truly first-time reader, I've never read this before. I grabbed the trade paperback off of Comixology and went to it this morning, grabbed a cup of coffee, sat down, started reading, and honestly, I fell asleep twice in the first 3 books trying to stay awake. So in my opinion, the first 2 or 3 books out of that trade, out of that read, is just really tough to get through. But about page 100 in the trade, I started reading. I noticed the shift. I noticed the shift in the art. I noticed the shift in the delivery and in the story. And I was hooked. And those last 100, 120 pages I read, like I just blew through them in less than half an hour. Like I'm finding myself wanting to reread it again right now because I've read it too damn fast. It's good. I mean, Chad, Drew, I think you guys are on the same boat about the very first couple of them are kind of a little on the rough side, but wow, that was impressive. It really was. I thought it was all hype. When people talk about Death of Superman, I really sat here for years thinking, it's all hype. It's all hot garbage water, Superman, whatever. And every time you guys get me to read a Superman book, I am pleasantly surprised. I really am.
I'm going to jump in and just say I was collecting comics like loosely before this, and this was like probably my first event comic, and I may have been getting like Superman, but I wasn't getting action. I wasn't getting Man of Steel, and I wasn't getting, was it Adventures, right?
Yes, Adventures, yes.
So I just remember like the first time I got it, I noticed that there was a little triangle that said like 1, and I was like, and then the next one I got was 3. I was like, I need to get 2. So then I got them and I started reading it. I disagree with Andy though, man. The beginning of this book is awesome. He beats the living crap out of the Justice League with an arm tied behind his back.
But what was I still don't even know what the point of his arm being tied behind his back was all
so
about.
That comes down the road in Doomsday Wars, right?
I was going to surprise you with the chat, but
yeah, there it is.
So
Doomsday Hunter Prey.
Right here.
You're talking about that number 1 in the diamond, right?
Yes.
Please explain to us what that's about.
That's the way that the book read. So
right, that's the reading order.
That's the reading order. So the book that Carson just showed up actually explained more about who Doomsday was and how badass he was. So, I mean, before we jump into it, for Andy's purpose, Doomsday is a Kryptonian.
Okay.
He was made by Kryptonian scientists.
It's Kryptonian murder, baby.
To be the ultimate living weapon. And he cannot be killed twice the same way. So he's always, so every time he died, like as a infant, they'd bring him back, they re-engineer him, and he couldn't die that way. So as he developed, and every time he died, he came back more and more and more and more with more bones coming out, spikes coming out. So to a point where they finally captured him, they put him in that containment suit, in the containment, and shot him into space. Happens that he lands in at Earth.
Okay.
Years and years before Superman got there.
So that dialogue between the scientists and talking about Doomsday wasn't created in that mountain laboratory that they were originally fighting at in about what 4 or 5, I think.
Yeah, no.
Because they kind of, as a first-time reader, I was kind of led to believe that he was a lab creation out of that laboratory that was in that mountain.
No, so That 3-issue book that Carson showed explains a lot of it. Like, you just thought this guy, there was just an enraged monster like the Hulk, but like pumped up on HGH and just gone crazy. But yeah, this book actually, like, it introduced my favorite character eventually, and I just loved it. I mean, it was a fantastic read, and it kept me interested. I think this came out before Nightfall, correct?
Correct. Yeah, this is the one that kind of started everything, and I was kind of going to get into that. I guess we may as well now.
Well,
like, I watched the whole documentary actually to get ready for this episode on like a DC put it out as a part of a DVD bonus for one of the animated movies like not the one they just did in 2018, but the one before that.
Doomsday.
And, yeah, exactly. Superman Doomsday. And I mean, they kind of make the point that this is like the first time they killed off a character this major, to the point where even DC they didn't see this big tidal wave of speculation, that stuff coming, because what happened was the media caught wind of what was going to happen right here. And you started seeing it in Time and the New York Times and all of these newspapers started printing off that DC was going to kill Superman. And, you know, DC, they knew they had a hit on their hands, but they didn't realize how big that hit was going to be. So once this happened, you all of a sudden started to see Nightfall, where Batman gets his back broke by Bane, and they replace him with Azrael, kind of like Superman more or less gets replaced eventually by the 4 characters in Adventures of Superman 500. Wonder Woman gets replaced by Artemis down the line. Green Arrow gets replaced by Connor Hawke. They already had a good test run with Wally West being the Flash, and so on and so forth. Hal
Jordan.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a formula they washed, rinsed, and repeated big time in the 90s.
5G. Kind of the first 5G.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're gonna take out all the heroes and replace them with younger versions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love this story, guys. I absolutely love this story. That's why I put it on the list, the poll. I wanted people to vote for it because I wanted to read it again. And when I read it again, I realized that the front half of this book is just terrible. It's just really bad. The Justice League, it's like, okay, Doomsday beats the Justice League with one arm tied behind his back. And that arm being tied behind his back is to illustrate to you, he's bound and he breaks his way out of this chamber or whatever he's in. And then he beats up the Justice League with one of his arms still tied behind his back. And it's supposed to make him look really good. The problem is he beat 7 nobodies to a pulp.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, oh, he beat the Justice League? So wait, Flash? Nah, Flash isn't in the Justice League. Well, so Wonder Woman? Nah, she's not there either. Oh, well, he had to have beaten Batman. Nah, Batman. Batman's not part of the Justice League. Well, who's in the Justice League? Fire and Ice. Well, of course he beat Fire and Ice. I mean, he beat Booster Gold. Of course he beat Booster Gold. He beat that guy who was like powered by dead slaves, but was actually Martian Manhunter.
Bloodwind.
Yes.
Bloodwind with a Y.
Yeah.
Not an I.
So, like, why is with a Y for why is this guy even a thing? Right.
But again,
but if you cut out all the stuff like with the stupid family with the ungrateful kid who loves Guy Gardner, so you know he's a little shithead. He's a little pumpkin-headed dipshit. You get all that out of there. You get the new Justice League getting their shit pushed in, and you get them out of there. And then as soon as it's Doomsday fighting Superman one-on-one, it's one of the best things I've ever read. It's just perfectly plotted as far as the action. Everything's over the top. Yeah, you can look at the panels and tell that most of them are just rip-off drawings. Like they're just good old tracings of old Hulk drawings, and they put some bone protrusions on them. But like it's a fun story. It's heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. The art is really good if you can get over the fact that it's very nipple heavy. There are a lot of pizza pie nipples going on in this book, but beyond that, it's really good.
Well, I mean, then if we can, I think I want to make a point to say that Guy Gardner's haircut's going to give me PTSD too. Jeez, bowl cuts, 90s bowl cuts is right there. Oh.
Ginger Mo, right there. Did you guys see that? Guy Gardner.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I feel like the Justice League at this point, you know, put it in. I always got to put stuff in wrestling terms at least once an episode. Put it in wrestling terms. The Justice Leagues were your jobbers to get your main heel over, basically. So they're just throwing in there as cannon fodder to show you that Doomsday is an actual threat because you haven't seen Doomsday up to this point. So
we
he's
could have got one mid-carder in that list.
The fact that he wrecked the Justice League that bad with one arm. I mean, yeah, your closest mid-carders were Bloodwind and Maxima. Because Booster Gold and the Blue Beetle, I love them to death, but yeah, they got wrecked quick.
This is not a fight for Booster Gold and Blue Beetle.
Going through the names of the writers of this story, I mean, if you guys, I mean, like the writers on this story at the time were Dan Jurgens, Jerry Orway, Louise Simonson, and Roger Stern.
Yes.
I mean, murderer's row right there.
Yeah, you had who was on the art for Man of Steel?
John Bogdanovich. Always get his
Bogdanovich.
Yeah, something like that.
And then you had Tom Grummett, Jackson Geis, and Dan Jurgens.
Now, there's my boys right there. Everybody except for John.
Yeah. And you also had Brett Breeding on there as he was.
He did the finished art for Jurgens, so Jurgens could do both Superman and Justice League.
But again, Drew, this actually created modern day Justice League. This like brought back the after the death and then the return, and then you have the Grant Morrison run on Justice League. Kind of was like, oh man, this Justice League is terrible. These are like the West Coast Avengers.
Oh, West Coast Avengers are way better than this B-list Justice League.
All right, I'll give it to you. How about we'll just say the Great Lake Avengers?
Well, I'm not even sure if they're on the level of the Great Lakes Avengers.
Even I could make that name.
They had their moments, especially when, you know, that run first started. I mean, the thing is, like, it was funded by Maxwell Lord. He's all about the money, basically. So this team we got to put together. Basically, Booster was your main guy because they both like money. So unfortunately, they got their comeuppance in the Justice League issue. But yeah, I mean, going back to the artist row, like besides John Bogdanovich or however you pronounce his last name, I wasn't a fan of the Man of Steel art. However, I do like eventually when he takes over with John Henry Iron Steel. I feel like his style of art finally shines when he draws John Henry Irons. But when he draws Superman and then you follow it up in the next issue with a Dan Jurgens or a Tom Grummett, it kind of falls apart because I just prefer that style of art compared to the other guy, basically. But Louise Simonson, some top-notch writing on that title for sure. She actually kind of made me care about some of these like random family characters thrown in. Like there's like a Make-A-Wish kid that's kind of thrown in there.
That was all bad. Not a fan.
I had to mention on purpose because I knew you didn't like that, Drew, but I still kind of enjoyed them. And then that family, just because you got to have the normal people reacting to what's going on too. But yeah, I mean, another cool thing they point out in that documentary, the closer they get to issue 75, they start cutting down the amount of panels. So you start with like 6, 5, and 4 panel layouts to 3 panel layouts per issue to I think the next to last, only 2 panels. And then you get to 75, everything's a splash page. So it just increases that tension and makes it, you just see all the action on the page. And I mean, by 75, there is no filler art. It's all killer by the time you get to this. And it's some of maybe Jurgens' best work he's ever done by far in issue 75.
Yeah,
he as the story progresses the entire time, you can feel yourself getting more drug into the story, and you can actually start to hear and feel the punches being thrown. And like that one scene where all the glass just shatters, man, that's awesome. But I will go back to an early panel shot when he is making his march towards Metropolis, and he runs into the Justice League and he punches Booster Gold. The catch when Superman catches Booster Gold is by far one of the most. Yeah, right there. That starts the story. I think the story begins there.
Yeah, that's where Superman comes right on the scene, and you're just like, oh, it's on now. We finally he's whipped around these like, C-list characters long enough. It's time for Superman to step up and solve this crisis once and for all. But I think we're talking before. My one criticism of this is they don't do a very good job explaining where the Batmans and the Wonder Womans and the Flashes are at. I believe you find out in Funeral for a Friend they're on a mission in space. I don't know what they're doing in space because it's been 25 plus years since I probably read the stuff that happened before and after this story. But yeah, if anyone was wondering, I believe they're in space.
Yeah, they're in space because like, why worry about it? Superman's there. Like, they can just go off to space whenever they want.
You bring that up, and this entire time that I was reading this book, all I was thinking to myself is, why doesn't he grab him and drag him and throw him at the sun? Take him all the way out to space where he has no power to hop, skip, and jump on anything and throw him into the sun.
Because he's a paragon of virtue, not intelligence.
He did say he weighed a ton. Like, he weighed a lot, but he was also as fast and as strong as Superman, too. So.
Doesn't Superman's key to his Fortress of Solitude weigh more than that?
It's true.
It does an all-star. It's like a four-star technology. I guess we can go over. Andy was nice enough to upload these panels of the week. So ultimately, I got to show this. Probably one of maybe my favorite cover of all time. Just the tattered cape and the wind, indicating that Superman has fallen and died. One of the top most iconic covers ever.
And before you move off,
that
cover was printed 5 times, wasn't it?
At least, yeah. I think if I remember right, it went to 4 printings, plus the black bag with the tombstone on the inside. So it did see at least I think at least 5 variations. Of course, you got to have my power cells are drained. I'm about as powerful as Pee Wee Herman. So nice dated reference there. Gotta love it. Biggie Shaq loves the wrestling reference there, where he figures out what Metropolis is.
Warbash 9.
Yeah. I do like the "where you gonna go, brother" instead of "what you gonna do." I'm marked out for that. We got, of course, Doomsday getting punched through a wall. I think that was the Action Comics artist Jackson Geiss did that one. Guardian, I think Biggie Shaq once again. I think he said the Guardian was like the most overpushed guy. Yeah, Jurgens definitely put his characters in the forefront. Like, you get to see Bibbo with a giant laser later, and then long-haired Lex, and then of course Matrix Supergirl getting punched into putty. You gotta love that.
So I mean, as a first-time reader, I didn't know that Supergirl she's made of putty. I had no idea.
That's where you need to keep on reading it.
That's Matrix. You don't ever need to read that.
No, I mean,
but I just sat there and read it as a first-time reader. I flipped to it. I was like, "Oh snap! She got punched so hard her face turned to putty," and I was like, "Damn!" Like in True Legend style. But I had no idea that she's made of putty.
She did kind of get reverse Lich King, as my friends would call it. Like in Lord of the Rings, there's that Lich King. They keep building this character up and building this character up, and when there's the battlefield, sure, it does some cool things, but at the end of the day, one move just takes it out instantly. It's like, really, all that build up for that? They keep building up Supergirl joining this battle against Doomsday like she's going to help Superman out in this, and literally the first thing she does is get punched into putty. So I call it reverse Lich King. And we get to this splashes in Superman 75. So of course you have the final goodbye to Lois. Definitely touching on it there. Definitely an iconic panel of Superman's last charge into battle with Jimmy looking bewildered on everything that's going on. One last punch to Superman. Like, at this point, every punch is just breaking his skin, making him bleed, which is highly uncharacteristic to Superman. And here's why I wanted to kind of ask a lot of you guys who read this digitally. What did you guys think of this panel? Because back in the day, or in this issue here, you actually have to fold this dang thing out. So do you feel like something was lost, or did you not mind at all, or notice if you read it digitally? Was there a big difference for any of you guys that read that?
Definitely a bigger impact in the actual book than it was digitally.
I agree.
I didn't know that was a fold out. Digitally, it looks like it's just another one-page panel somehow.
Yeah, so I think it's one of the rare times that reading something digitally actually kind of takes away from the reactionary part of finishing the story. So Well, with that being said, I mean, actually, one last point. I did want me and Chad were talking earlier on the phone, and we're kind of trying to figure out, was this truly the death of death in comics? They overplayed death of character so many times throughout the years. We're trying to figure out, like, if there's a character that has been around for longer than 10 years that has not been killed off. Can anyone think of any? Chad, I don't think we ever thought of one, did we?
No, we didn't. The one, and also this book wasn't, its intention wasn't to be a speculation book. It was just to recreate a character who had grown stale, according to people, and it was a different era. So people they wanted to see something else. But it ended up being kind of like a death of the community almost. I mean, death of comics for a little bit there, because the market got crushed over this.
Mm-hmm.
And what was it? 501 when they brought it back, the white cover?
Yeah.
But that was what, 93, 94 when they did this? So
it was like 94, I think.
Yeah. And they were spinning up Image around the same time too. So I can see DC losing a lot of readers.
Yeah, and what was funny about this book, after the death of and the funeral of the friend, is completely an underrated story, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I thought it brought everything together, and you were like, "Oh, okay, this really happened. This is it. It's over and it's done." And then next thing you know, boom, you come back with the Return of the Supermen, and which was so exciting. And that's the book that introduced me to Green Lantern.
Honestly, we should have just read 75 and then Funeral for a Friend, because I feel like that would have been better than the front end of this.
When I finished 75, I immediately messaged Carson. I was like, hey, were we supposed to read Funeral for a Friend? Because I don't feel like I should stop here at this point.
Now, they were saying in that documentary, especially like Louise Simonson, she was saying, like, in that writer's room, that almost all of them agree that, like, most of the actual, like, really good storytelling and writing starts after 75, where you get to see, Lois grieve, and then Louise Simonson was almost brought to tears just talking about how the Kent family couldn't attend Superman's funeral because they weren't VIPs, because Superman's identity was still secret. So they had to bury, they took this, like, little thing of, like, some of his childhood belongings, like a teddy bear and, some things like that. And they had their own funeral where from the crater of his ship where that crash landed, and you get to see him have a funeral between the two of them there. And then you get to see Lois. She's like holding off on calling the Kents, because if she calls it the Kents, that means it's all real.
Okay,
so
I think
there's a lot of touching stuff in Funeral for a Friend.
I think we have to add Funeral to a Friend to the list after next week's list.
Sounds like a good plan.
Luck. I don't think we're going to get 2 Supermans in a row.
And with Return of Superman, the Superman, that's when you said, with Image, when the Image came out, they were also coming out with a character called Supreme.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
But they also came out with an exact copy of Superboy called Kid Supreme.
Oh yes. Good old.
He even had the leather straps and everything. It was hilarious.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about Death of Superman, the Death of Superman overall, the Reign of the Superman, any of that, is that beautiful poster of the funeral procession.
Oh yeah,
right.
And how
Batman's just like crying like Chris Benoit.
Jeez.
He didn't even go down though. He was on the rooftop, right, with Robin.
No, the one poster he's on the rooftop.
In the poster he is,
yeah.
But in the actual book,
yeah,
he's up on top, and then he has like a conversation at the gravesite. I can't remember. And then he's the one that, like, doesn't he look up and see Eradicator standing there or something like that?
I think he sees some, but I can't remember if it's an Eradicator or Cyborg Superman.
Yeah.
But actually, they're talking in the chat about how Mongol blew up Coast City. Yeah, if you guys want to keep I was gonna have like a quick suggested post Death of Superman reads. Obviously, Funeral for a Friend, Adventures 500 going into the Reign of Superman. The Hunter Prey we've already talked about, but yeah, don't sleep on that Green Lantern. I think it's issue 46. That basically concludes the Reign of the Superman, and then leads directly into Emerald Twilight, which gave us the Kyle Rayner story, Green Lantern. So it's all tied really well together.
Oh, it pushes Hal Jordan over the edge.
It does. It pushes him into that parallax territory. So absolutely recommend reading all of that. Maybe Nightfall too. Yeah, sure. All right. So
amazing.
I think we've talked about this for about 30 minutes. We'll give our final score. So Andy, I want to hear your final score first, bud. What are you thinking?
We're rating the entire trade paperback start to finish, so I'm gonna go with an 8.0.
Okay.
For the entire trade paperback. I mean, you've cut it in half and show me the last 3 books, I would have gone a lot higher.
True.
Yeah, if you're talking just 75, it's a 10.0 gem mint. Perfect issue. Nothing wrong with it. No extra meat. Just great action. Fantastic splashes throughout the entire book. And just so much emotion. If I'm rating this trade from the first appearance of Doomsday through the death of Superman, it's a 7.5. The first 2 issues are such garbage that it really enhances when you get to the meat of it. But yeah, it was a much rougher start than I remember.
Chad, I know you don't grade comics, but if you had to rate this, what's the Chad rating?
So the story as a whole, the complete story, the death and return, I'm going to give that like it's 100% a 10. The death of, I'll go 9 on it. I got 9 on it. But then if you, like Drew said, if you add all of it together as a read, it's 100%. It's 10.
Nice. Yeah, for me, I think first off, from a nostalgia point, I got to go like a 10,000 out of 10 on it. It's like, once again, I'll throw another wrestling term out there. For me, it's like watching Hogan and Andre at WrestleMania 3. It brings back all of these memories, and you have a great time watching it. But if you kind of sit back and analyze it, you're just like, that's not the world's greatest match. Or like Drew said it perfectly. Those first few issues, especially when you're talking about like the not mole men, the sewer creatures, like who cares about the sewer? Like the best part was he threw a grenade in the guy's mouth. We didn't even talk about that whole story in this review at all. Which it's not worth talking about. It's very skippable, yeah. So I think I'm going to have to agree with Chad, probably 9.0. The Man of Steel artist, still very rough for me. I love Grummet's art. I love Jurgens and Breeding's art together. Phenomenal. My favorite all-time Superman art. I think I'm going to have to definitely hold it at a 9. But yeah, just the amount of stuff that started for me. Like I remember reading 75. And then I wanted to go back. I'm like, who are these Justice League people? So I was like flipping through Wizards and trying to read other comics and find other comics to figure out who all these people were. So as much as we kind of criticized, like they didn't use Batman and Wonder Woman, I still had a blast as a kid trying to figure out why is this the Justice League and who are these characters? I really enjoyed figuring that out as a kid, I'll be honest. And then going forward in Adventures 500, one of my favorite moments, you get to see Superman, you can see John Henry Irons and the other characters, and then you start the reign of the Superman, and it's an absolute blast of collecting from there.
Hey, can I says he still hasn't read a better run than this run. I think that's a fair opinion. I think that there's a lot of great stuff to have in here, and if you didn't read it this week, guys, go out and read it.
Hey, can I share a panel with you from the Return of?
Yeah.
Okay, so this panel, if I could show it, of Mongol bowing down to
Kiss in the Ring.
Yeah, right after. This is right after Coast City gets destroyed, and Cyborg Superman says, I molded it, a Coast City in my image. But that's the end of, I think it was Superman with Dan Jurgens, and then Grummet art comes in. And here's a scene where everybody thinks that the Cyborg Superman's still working for them, and he's going through Coast City looking for survivors. He comes across some survivors, and he straight up vaporizes them.
Damn.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I gotta read this now.
It's definitely fun. A big, huge nostalgia trip there. But I gotta show off my one piece of art real quick. Doomsday.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
Love it. Got this at Baltimore last year. And it's funny because I remember asking, because I wasn't thinking Doomsday. I was like, hey, you want to do like a crypto? Because Drew got a cool crypto from somebody, and he's just like, no. And I'm like, oh, what about this character? No. Okay, what about Doomsday? He's like, yeah, I guess. And then he knocked it out of the park. So that is my one piece of art I have to show based on this.
Hey, here is some super nostalgia right here. Jimmy Olsen. I'm trying to see if I can see it. He's wearing a Spin Doctor t-shirt.
Yep. No, the kid really had a fake Megadeth.
Just go ahead.
I mean, and then all the way to the end where, I mean, he comes back and it's just, it's fucking awesome.
It is. All right, let's get into this chat before we go into our next topic of the night. Of course, I know this guy has been looking forward to reading Death of Superman for probably the entire run of Modern Man. We still got Biggie Shack hanging out. I know he absolutely loves Death of Superman. It's one of his all-time favorites. We got Thunderhouse Design. What's going on, man? He says, back in the day, was convinced that Cyborg Soups was the real deal. And then that panel. Yeah, even I remember like Lois was the one character in Reign of Superman who was convinced that maybe this is Clark Kent somehow downloaded into this cyborg. So if we can fool Lois, he'd probably fool anybody. We still got the Mastodon in the chat. We got Bear Island Comics. Where's that one funny? Everything he says is funny, basically. But he says, "Look, Carson, who's this Bloodwind guy?" Yeah, I had to find out who Bloodwind was, and then I found out he was Martian Manhunter. I didn't know who Martian Manhunter was, so it was going down a rabbit hole, basically. We got Jay Blitz Comics in the chat. What's going on, Jay Blitz? Nice to see you in
Guys,
the
I
chat
hung out
tonight.
with Jay Blitz the other night on his channel, and
Nice.
he's doing a contest right now. You see that little brown poop emoji, man? That's his icon. Hit him up on Instagram if you would design a logo for him. You might be able to win some books. So guy out.
Very nice. We got Scott Evans. He always reads along every week. Definitely appreciate him hopping in tonight. We still got Two Brothers Comics. Thanks once again for plugging the show on Instagram. And then I believe, we got Ricky Markstadt in the chat. What is going on, Ricky? Nice to see Ricky out and about tonight. And of course, Comics with Bueller. What's going on, Bueller? Nice to see you tonight. All right, so Chad, I don't know if you've came up with a list, and Drew, I haven't seen if yours is uploaded list. But
It's up.
Nice. So usually we do these top 5 gimmicks every once in a while, and I do want to shout out Parasitic Symbiote in the chat. What is going on? I wanted to shout him out before it kept going. But basically, usually when we do our top 5s, each of the panel members picks 5 of the topic, and then we just go over and talk about them. So this top 5 this time was on cartoons based on comic books. So I know this is one we kind of been saving up for a while. So without further ado, let's just start with my number 5, which people are probably gonna be like, why did you pick this at only number 5? Batman the Animated Series. Okay. So I know this is going to be a pick for a lot of us, but when I first saw this thing, I was blown away by it, of course, like everybody else. I really thought the what they call the Darko Deco technique was really cool, where they use like black paper instead of white to do their animation, so it gives it this like darker, grittier feel. And some of those earlier episodes are just some of those phenomenal episodes of television, not just cartoons, television of all time, where you have the Mr. Freeze origin, the Two-Face origin that you get. Like, they do a really good job with villains, and of course you got the Mark Hamill Joker. What's there not to like there?
Everybody's singing that opening credit song right now.
Yeah. Yep. So absolutely. I mean, that wasn't not going to be on the list. Like that was a fixture on my list no matter what. So Batman the Animated Series all day. But Andy, yours number 5 made in my honorable mention list, so we'll put that up. Andy picked The Tick at number 5.
That show should have gone for 3 or 4 more seasons than what it did, but it was a hard sell for kids at that day and age with the toys, with that comedy that they were doing. The way it was wrapped up and bundled just kind of didn't really hit home with kids. Sales weren't great with toys and a lot of the things they were doing. So the show went, I think 2-3 seasons at the most. Mm-hmm. It probably should have gone for 5 or 6, in my opinion. The writing was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. The only reason why it's not higher on my list is because it was short-lived.
Yeah, and all I know is Spoon.
Spoon!
I think you're the only person. Does anyone else have any thoughts on The Tick? Because I think that was the only time this was picked.
I always forget that it's comic book related. I know it's very superhero related, but I knew of the cartoon before I knew of the comic. I mean, for years, I didn't know it was a comic book when I was a kid. So, yeah, it didn't make my list because I forgot about it. But yeah, I love that. Chairface Chippendale. Come on.
Oh yeah. Batman. Well, gotta love that. That show was a lot of fun.
Deflator.
Drew, we'll get into your number. This is why I didn't cut to anyone else when I was talking about Batman. We're probably going to talk about Batman. Drew's number 5,
Batman the animated series. Yeah. The criteria that I put my list together with as really 2 different facets to it, and this definitely nails one of them, and that's continuity and building on a continuity that already exists to expand what a child knows of these superhero properties. I didn't know shit about Scarecrow till Batman the Animated Series. You know, I might have known Penguin and Joker, but you know, I didn't know about these other characters. I didn't know about these other adventures. You know, and I really enjoyed getting to know these characters, and I thought that it did a really great job with that. Where this misses the mark is with any kids cartoon came on Saturday morning or afternoons after school. You want that merchandising, and I think that Batman the Animated Series kind of missed the mark with the merchandising, the way that some of these other choices that I have. So yeah, all of these 5 choices for me could have been number 1, but I put this in number 4 or number 5.
I kind of agree. It was kind of hard ranking these. Like, I could have easily put any of my choices at number 1 as well. So there's our 5. So Chad, I know you kind of got put on here at the last second. What are your thoughts on the number 5 so far? Did you have a pick of your own to throw in?
Yeah, but unfortunately, I guess I screwed up because I went with.
Oh, nice!
Ooh,
broke it all. That's a good show.
Not only that, your text is very bold.
Yeah,
he's a bold guy.
I'm a bold man, Drew. I'm a bold man.
It's a bold choice from a bold man.
And this actually led into my number 4 pick too.
Well, do any of you guys know why Batman Beyond only went like 2 seasons on the CW?
Yeah, because people didn't watch it.
Because the problem was they actually did a final episode in my number 4.
Well, sounds like let's talk about Chad's number 4, Justice League Unlimited.
So the final
episode.
The final episode was in Justice League Unlimited, and it's when Terry breaks into Amanda Waller's office and finds out that he is essentially a clone of Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
So Terry's dad was injected with Bruce Wayne's DNA.
Yeah, he was.
Young Terry comes along, and he's all Bruce. But no. The Justice League for me, the reason I picked it, especially Justice League Unlimited, it was the first time I was seeing some of those other characters. So, like, the Question was on it, and Green Arrow was getting a little bit of a push, and Black Canary. It was just, it was the first time I was seeing the expanded universe.
Nice. Actually, Drew had another good one at 4. This is made of my honorable mentions, but I'm going to let Drew talk about it. Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Man, they did Secret Invasion, right? They did the Kree Skrull world. They did everything that you wanted out of long-term storytelling from an Avengers standpoint. I really loved it. I thought the animation left a little bit to be desired, which is why it's not higher on this list. And the toy imprint was basically non-existent, and was probably after the point in time where, you know, I was buying toys for their action playset abilities. So Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, man, I love this show. They changed it to Avengers Assemble after the 3rd season, I believe, and it got terrible. But Earth's Mightiest Heroes was definitely a good run.
Yeah, I think they had, if I remember, I think it was either Craig Kyle and or Chris Yost writing that show.
I'm pretty sure they were both on it.
Yeah, that came directly from the Marvel Comics side. Yeah, they had a lot of cool stories. It was basically like their version of Justice League Unlimited. You got a lot of cool stories taken from the comics. They were integrating a lot of characters that weren't directly on the team when they could. And it had a badass theme song to boot too. So this is a very underrated show. Very underrated. So we'll get into Andy's number 4. Guess what? It's coming up again. Batman the Animated Series.
I struggled with where I wanted this to land on my list. Like you guys, a lot of these could have been 1, 2, 3, or 4. How many years later are we after the show's ended, and I still hum that opening tune in my head? I can still hear Mark Hamill's voice playing Joker in my head. I loved it. You guys have already made really great points, and it landed on number 4 for me, and I loved it.
And you keep coming back to that song. And I think that music is a really big part of any of these choices. Very important for a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah.
But for my money, out of my 5, I think that Batman the Animated Series has the weakest music, even though it's full orchestra.
Really?
Yeah, man. You gotta see the rest of my list. There's some great songs on there.
Okay. Oh yeah. You are the pick master. Okay.
Bear says, quit hot taking Batman down your list. That's the one that cracked me up earlier. It's the best ever, he says. I think it's pretty dang good. You had the Danny Elfman theme to lead off the show. Like that. Like if you're just a little kid sitting at home and you're flipping through channels and you hear that theme start to play, you're probably gonna stay there. But you know what else is on Fox?
Can I sell Batman the Animated Series real quick to kind of make Bear Island happy before we move on? That the opening sequence has that Fleischer Studios feel to it that I think is absolutely stunning. That's my favorite thing about the whole thing. I think the music could be better because I got better songs on this list, but that Fleischer style animation on that opening sequence is just stunning.
I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
Here's one I guess I hot to take too far down my list. I want X-Men at number 4. It's on the list though. Like, come on. It's on the list. But yeah, this is the show that got me into X-Men. I had no clue who Wolverine or Cyclops was. But then I saw X-Men in 92, and I'm like, all right, I'm hooked on these characters. They took all the stories from the comics and made a show out of it, basically. Like the Dark Phoenix saga was great. I even like the story with, Attack of the Sentinels, where they introduced Morph just to kill him off, basically. The reason I'd hot take it down is because that final season, that had switched animation studios, and it just got really rough in all aspects, including the writing, the animation style, and the ending just fell flat. However, before that, where they should have ended the series is where they did like the whole thing where Apocalypse gets control of the time stream and kidnaps all the psychics, and then they start integrating any X-Men they're basically allowed to have their hands on at that point. It was like a 4-parter, and I think that's the best that show got. So I think that is pretty much like the height of that series. But, ranking these, like...
It also introduced us the social distancing. Rogue One.
Should we get into Chad's number 3? Because we're going to talk about it one more time. Batman, the Animated Series. We all picked it. Yay, we won't get too much hate mail.
Question for you. If you go back and watch it now and sit down and watch it, it's 100% geared towards adults. Am I right? I mean, the one with the girl, the one that's on the rocket. Do you know who I'm talking about? I think there's this episode where she rides around on a rocket all the time.
Oh, yeah. Jesus, I know who you're talking about.
She actually has an orgasm on the fucking rocket.
I don't remember that.
She did.
I think out of all these lists, Batman does hold up a lot better than anything else.
And I'm excited that it's coming back in comic book form when we get comics again.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll be happy to see it next November.
Wow.
All right, here's Drew's number 3, which I'm kind of surprised this ranked above Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, continuity. This show, it did everything it possibly could to give you as much Spider-Man history as you could possibly get even up to Madam Web and him swinging around the city with Stan Lee. You get Michael Morbius. They had to change him because they couldn't make him a vampire biting people, so they gave him the little leech hands. But Blade was in this show, crossed over with the X-Men. You're talking about him swinging through the city and you seeing just randoms from the Marvel universe littered throughout. And I'm going to tell you that synthed up Spider-Man, radioactive spider bite. Like, dude, that song gets me every time. It's better than the Batman the Animated Series theme song. I'm going to say that out loud and draw all the ire from Bear Island Comics.
The reason this one didn't make my list, and I thought I really enjoyed this as a kid too. It was almost like over continuous for a kid's cartoon, if that makes sense. Like I remember, like I'd get back from like football practice or basketball practice, I'd turn it on, and it'd be like Mary Jane is missing part 45. I'm like, okay, I'm completely lost. And then it went into Spider-Man Unlimited. And we never got resolute. We never found Mary Jane, so I couldn't let that one slide.
We got Miguel O'Hara instead.
That's true.
No, we found her. She turned into like Hydro Woman, wasn't she?
It's true. I remember that.
I think that was like fake Mary Jane, though. But Andy, you want to talk more about it because it's your number 3 as well,
right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Drew. Didn't Punisher make a couple of appearances?
Yeah, he did. I don't know why this isn't your number 1. Punisher.
And I think that's what like, oh my god, Punisher's in this. I'm getting in on this, and like everybody else around that time frame. That was into Marvel or Spider-Man or Punisher. I got sucked in. It's not as memorable as I had hoped it would be, but for as much, it hit number 3 on my list because I spent a lot of time watching that show. I definitely want to find it and go back and watch it again and see how it holds up, though.
All right, for my number 3, it probably should have been number 5, but like I had never seen anything like this ever when I was a kid. I had to pick Spawn on HBO. I remember like waiting for that premiere episode, even get like Todd McFarlane sitting in his like artist workshop, like being all like the Crypt Keeper style, and it cracked me up. And then you get into this, and the art style was just so good. And
Keith David's voice.
Yeah, Keith David's voice, absolutely. Couldn't have picked a better voice for Spawn. And, you get Sam and Twitch as well. And this is the first time I saw anything like this show. I just, when you're thinking comic books, especially even in the 90s, most of them were made for Saturday morning television or after school television. They decided to go like evenings on HBO. So nice contrast to the PG-13 rated movie that they put out for sure. So if you're looking for Spawn on the silver screen, skip the movie and just go right for the cartoon. Is absolutely amazing stuff. Like it's very short-lived, unfortunately, but it's all quality. But we're going back to Spider-Man because Chad picked Spider-Man at his number 2.
Yeah, a lot with what you're saying, but it also did the first, not the first, but one of the first crossovers with the X-Men. Yeah, and it was a 2-parter, and it started on X-Men and was on, then went to the other one. But the art on it, that's when you were saying that the X-Men had to change art. I remember watching that Spider-Man episode and go, man, I love how they made the X-Men look awesome. and then his interaction, like seeing him interact with like Wolverine, it was like somebody opened up like your toy chest and started like playing. You're playing with your toys. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. We'll go to Drew's number 2. TMNT. I kind of like this pick here.
What have I been talking about this whole conversation, guys? Continuity, massive amount of characters.
Yep.
Great theme song. And finally on this list, merchandising.
Yes.
When I see a cartoon that has Michelangelo dress up like a pizza chef, and then I can go to the Kmart and buy myself a Michelangelo dressed as a pizza chef. Every single cell of animation was turned into an action figure.
Yep.
And it was, in the old school style of a lot of forgotten cartoons on this list based on the age of the people talking about them. G.I. Joe didn't make my list. Thundercats didn't make my list. Masters of the Universe didn't make my list. but this did what they did, and it basically was just one big toy commercial, but also had great characters, great storytelling, great laugh gags, and come on, man, Heroes in a Half Shell, Turtle Power. What a song. What a song.
Absolutely. Well, I have a feeling we're going to talk more about TMNT here in a few minutes. Well, let's go to Andy's number 2. We're going back to X-Men.
Yep. They've said a lot. They've pretty much covered it. X-Men, as prolific as it was in the 90s, had its high ends, had its low ends, but a lot of people watched it, and we watched a lot of it.
Absolutely. So for my number 2, I know Chad talked about it earlier, and for me, it's just like this was almost the Batman spot, but I just like the Timverse in general. I think this was at full throttle. Justice League Unlimited. Chad put it pretty well earlier. You finally got like the great writing, idea creations of Bruce Timm. Then you brought in other writers like even Warren Ellis worked on this show. And then they started using those C and D level characters and made really good episodes of them. Like that Warren Ellis episode, he uses the Atom. Like it's a really good episode about the Atom. There's another great one. I think one of my favorites is Booster Gold's episode where Batman's like, "You're gonna watch this post, and that's all you're gonna do." And then he ends up having to get in this whole separate adventure with this lady, and he's trying to save her, and it ends up being world threatening somehow. And he actually saves the world, him and Skeets. And then all that comes out of it was Batman gets mad he left his post. And then he couldn't tell Batman about it. And then, of course, the best series of episodes, I know Catherine figures if she was on here, she would agree, is the Question Authority series of episodes. So they take the question and then make him the star of the episode. So he's like, he finds out about this Lex Luthor conspiracy theory where he basically has this whole big conspiracy where Superman is going to kill somebody. He's just trying to ruin the image of Superman based on what happened on an alternate Earth. And the only person who can concoct this scheme crazier than Luthor is the Question. That's how he starts to find out about it. So there's just this whole thing where Huntress and the Question have to uncover this whole thing. And then eventually the government gets involved. And then you see Captain Atom come out of nowhere and be conflicted between his allegiances with the Justice League and the government. And then, of course, Superman gets involved in all this. And then they wrap the original 7 versus Luthor and Brainiac to finish the whole story off. And it's just a lot of great continuity and a lot of great storytelling. Some of the most great, memorable episodes of TV I've ever seen. So had to be my number 2. I know a lot of people like the Batman, the X-Men, but for me, I had to put Justice League Unlimited high up on the list. But now, before we get into our number 1, do you guys have any honorable mentions you want to talk about or throw out there real quick?
I talked about some honorable mentions. G.I. Joe is definitely up there. Thundercats is definitely up there. Masters of the Universe is up there. I know it's not technically based on a comic, but I'm a big fan of Eek the Cat and Terrible Thunder Lizards.
Nice. Yeah, I think my one you guys didn't mention was X-Men Evolution. I know people love and hate that show for whatever reason. They were going
to do Apocalypse.
No, that was Wolverine and the X-Men. Was it? Yeah.
No, X-Men Evolution actually did Apocalypse. They were going to do the Dark Phoenix saga after that.
Oh, right.
Yeah. X-Men Evolution, it's kind of like Buffy to me. Very rough first season. They spend a lot of time just focusing on the characters with high school issues. Once they get that out of their system, it's actually a really good X-Men show, especially once you get to that final season where Apocalypse just shows up. He ends up killing Magneto, Storm, Xavier, and Mystique, and then he brings them back as his horsemen. And he puts them each at a point on Earth, and then the X-Men have to, they get all these other characters they've interacted with, both heroes and villains, and they all have to team up to take on the Four Horsemen and eventually take on Apocalypse. And I think it's some of the best X-Men I've seen for sure, whether it be the regular series, the movies. It's just a lot of fun. Then you finally get, I think they knew the series was ending, so they had this one last Xavier vision of what he saw when he was a horseman. That's when you see Dark Phoenix and some of the other crazy storylines, they wanted to do, but they didn't get a chance to do. So I really enjoyed X-Men Evolution, especially toward those final seasons. Oh, and then there was another good, I think it was the beginning of season 3, where you see Magneto form his new Brotherhood, and he actually recruits like Colossus and Gambit, and they're like, why are Colossus and Gambit bad guys? And you have to keep watching to find out. So it's a lot of good stuff in that one, I think.
Chris Barrett just put something in the chat, and I'm surprised that none of us brought this up. This is definitely going to go on honorable mention. It doesn't matter which version you're talking about, but Teen Titans.
Yeah, I mean, look at everybody here. Teen Titans was a little past our prime, so to speak.
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of these shows, it's rinse, cycle, repeat. 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons, and then a new generation and a new style of shows is coming out, and so on and so forth, and over and over. And Teen Titans was kind of past our prime, to be honest. It was what?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Maybe 2001. It was right when most of us were probably out partying, drinking beer, or doing other stuff and having jobs.
And to that same point, we never even talked about Young Justice tonight. That was like right after Teen Titans, which was it was so popular, it got brought back on DC Universe. So
it's so popular, it got canceled, and then it was so popular, it got brought back again.
And then, of course, Harley Quinn.
And it made the worst. It made the worst video game of all time, too.
Young Justice.
Oh, that's true.
I don't know. Superman 64 is one of the worst games of all time.
Venture Brothers.
Venture Brothers is a fantastic show.
I almost put Space Ghost Coast to Coast on my list just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
You gotta love Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And then Darkwing Duck gets a mention. Oh, there's Simple Man. He says Young Justice rules. He loves him some Young Justice. So Fish Tropic. I don't know if it's based on a comic, but he mentioned Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Oh, that was great.
Fun show.
That's a great theme song.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So
Rick and Morty.
Unless anyone else has any honorable mentions, we got to hop into our number ones here. So, Chad, we'll hop into here since we already alluded to it a few times. X-Men.
Simply on the theme song alone, right? I mean,
best intro.
It dealt. I mean, when they introduced Bishop, and he just kept on coming back, and
I'm from the future,
and he screws everything up, and finally there was this. I just, it was a great show. There's a lot of little hidden gems throughout that entire show, and hidden characters. So I mean, it was fun.
Nice. All right, so we can all kind of take 5 minutes and go get a drink of water because Drew gets his turn to talk about the X-Men animated series.
Theme music. We all know it's the best cartoon theme music of all time. You could play it before it came back on Disney Plus, hadn't been aired anywhere in 15 years, and you play it, and kids all around the world go, "Where's Wolverine? Where's he at? Where's that sexy rogue lady who's wearing those tight pants all the time? And where's that Jean Grey lady who's always having an orgasm every time something happens? Her head flashes pink, and she's like, ah! Where's that black lady who's all like, winds come and wash away these bigots? It's the best cartoon ever. It's the best cartoon ever. And I talk about all the continuity. You wouldn't have, without X-Men the Animated Series taking the chances it did, you wouldn't have that kind of adult continuity that you have in all these other shows that we're talking about, because you needed it. You needed it every time you needed it. Previously on X-Men, and they told you for like a half hour before the show what happened on the last 30 shows just to get you caught up, because there's so much greatness. In the words of Apocalypse, this cartoon is as far above the other cartoons as those cartoons are above you. This is the ultimate. When you talk about merchandising, me and my brother as kids running into KB Toys, right? And you turn over the figure and be like, oh, well, they got all of these, but they don't have this one. They don't have this one. They don't have this one. And we're getting a new Omega Red, and we're getting a second Juggernaut, and there's a Gambit, and he's coming out, and he's, oh my God, there's a Gambit. Where the hell do we get the Gambit at? We can't find that thing anywhere. It was the best collecting experience. Really got me started with collecting. Because of this show, I picked up off the rack Uncanny X-Men 300 and became a comic book fan. This show is the reason I'm here. Blame it if you like, but it's responsible for me being here.
I believe everything he just said.
Yeah.
I mean, every word. I was hanging on by a string. I'm joking. Drew, I love the show. I can't disagree
You left
with you.
your chair.
People to see what he got up and left.
I wanted to go get a water. Carson said go get water. I do what Carson says.
Modern men. All right. Andy, number one. Oh, look, a great pick there. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I like Drew said earlier, opening music, merchandising, characters, memories. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is why my family had a weekly pizza night, because as a child demanded a pizza night. And every time we went to Pizza Hut, that arcade game was there for me to play.
But Pizza Hut was better then too.
Oh, it was way better back then. Way better back then.
Like the pizza now sucks compared to what it did back then.
Yeah. But I mean, like, Drew took up all the time. I'm not gonna. No,
There's plenty of time, Andy.
but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, for what X-Men was for Drew, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was for me. We had all the toys. We went to all the stores collecting all the different ones, looking for them. That first series of toys, they were underprepared and they weren't ready and sold out right away. There's a great documentary online that talks about that. And then they came back and they just went gangbusters and came out with all of the cool stuff. You had to have everything. You had to.
They're still doing it today.
And then when and then what about the sleepovers with the video game parties with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video games? Oh my God. Every week it was gangbusters. That was my life growing up before I figured out what money and a job was.
Yeah. Chad says they're still doing it today with the TMNT toys, but I mean, I'm pretty sure I got two variants of Wolverine right here in front of me. They're still doing it with the X-Men toys too. You put them in the freaking retro packages. All of these things are coming back, and for me, it was 1A and 1B. I think TMNT it hits all of the buttons, man. When you talk about these, I mean, I had a freaking plastic van that shot pizzas.
Yes, yes. I was trying to remember that.
How do you explain
that? They're doing a loot crate right now for TMNT that Bebop is in the Easter Bunny's outfit from the episode Turtles in a Hair.
Oh,
I mean, but then they take that show kept going even when they took the main villains out of it. Like Shredder and them disappeared for like 3 seasons.
Oh, Uncle Phil.
Yeah.
But he came back as a baby. They even had a baby. My God. It was a good show.
Did they create Jesse Jones, that character, for the show, or was he
Casey
in the
Jones?
comic first?
He was in the comic.
Yeah, he was Raphael number 4, right?
Yeah, the Raphael one shot.
Yeah.
Good cover on that one. But my number one, yeah, you guessed it. It's Turtles. Because why wouldn't it be? Like, seriously. I don't know what else I could say about Turtles that I haven't said already. I mean, this cartoon came along with the movie and the comic. And in my opinion, it was really the cartoon that really put it in all the households and made it this franchising juggernaut that it still is today. And it made some of the best cartoons ever. Like, I mean, great voice acting. I love the animation style. I mean, the reason I stopped watching cartoons as a kid is because they stopped making Ninja Turtles on Saturday mornings at, like, I think it was 10 a.m. for me on CBS. Like, I would stick around and watch the other crap that they had on there, like the Incredible Sea Monkeys, I think was a show after that. Probably like Beakman's World.
I love Beakman's World.
The Back to the Future cartoon was on at that time.
You're blowing
The best thing before that was the Garfield and Friends. Even though you had to sit through the farm animals, which once again, she had the Cat Run figures. I think that was like Sheldon was like her favorite or whatever. Maybe it was her least favorite. I don't know. But Garfield and Friends and TMNT were like the best 1 hour lineup ever on Saturday mornings. And you had to sit through some crap like the Sea Monkeys and Beakmans and that stuff. And then you got the WWF Superstars. So great lineup on the Saturday morning stuff. But yeah, I would wake up early from school. Like I didn't go to school till like 7:30 or whatever. They would air this at 6 a.m. in syndication. So therefore, I had to set an alarm for 5:45 so I could watch my Turtles and eat my cereal before I go to school every day.
You know, Donnie the Mastodon makes a great point. Also, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was like the longest running cartoon of everybody's list tonight as well. That's why it's on my number one as well.
Yeah, they actually even like retweaked the intro toward the last seasons. They changed up the theme and they integrated images and stills from the movie because everyone loved the movies too because they were so popular. But I remember like my other funny TMNT animated story was I think it was Thanksgiving, probably like 92-ish or something. And my parents like, you got to come to the table. It was like 8 p.m. Like, why are we eating so late? There was a turtle movie that aired on CBS at 8 p.m. on Thanksgiving. And they wouldn't let me watch it because we were eating Thanksgiving. I was so stubborn and annoying. I made them give me a plate and I sat in front of the TV and watched that whole movie. Like it was about like them going to, I can't remember if it was like Dimension X or they went into, I think they just went into space and they fought like the Cybertrons basically. And it was really cool. And I don't think they've really ever re-aired it or re-released it. So I'm glad I watched it because that was probably the only opportunity that it ever aired. So as you can tell, I love me some Turtles as a kid, and it definitely has reverberated into my collecting today. And I still think right now it's the number one told story on the bookshelf still somehow. So I think it has one of the most loyal fan bases out there. So for me, I feel like I had to pick Turtles for my number one pick.
Look at that current run that's going on with what IDW.
Yes,
in the
it's very good.
Oh yeah.
Very good. It's like I said, I think it's my favorite read out there. And yeah, it even had the good crossovers. Count Von Strange is talking about the crossovers in the chat. When they had the 2003 Turtles, they actually had this movie called Turtles Forever, where you get to see the 2003 version of the Turtles meet the late 80s, early 90s animated Turtles.
I remember
and it's a really cool movie. I highly recommend it to any Turtle fan out there. And of course, the video games come on. Turtles Arcade, Turtles in Time. Two big, huge thumbs up here.
Yep.
So any final thoughts on animated, Andy?
Man, we could do a whole nother show on animated series in that time frame that aren't even comic book related. Like Beavis and Butthead. I was gonna stretch that and throw that at my number one for the superhero Cornholio with everything going on right now, because he needs TP for his bunghole. But there was a lot of great shows during that time, and you could almost save this for another show another time.
Yeah, true.
I think that these cartoons are timeless, and with very little exception, we all had the same titles, in a slightly different order. And I think that we all had trouble sorting those out. I do think it's indicative of our age. It would be nice if we talk about cartoons again in the future to get somebody on the younger side and somebody on the older side and get a little bit of a different skew on what these would be, because I know the Thunderhouse Designs has definitely been throwing out a bunch of older cartoons in the chat, as has Scott Evans. I know Donnie threw out some earlier, just like cartoons that I loved as a kid, but like they didn't connect with me because I was watching reruns of an old cartoon as opposed to something that was new, that was marketed directly towards me. And I think that my top two being X-Men and TMNT just speaks to the level of perfection they had in the way that they marketed those shows. They were the total package. They had the toys, they had the music, they had the merchandise. Biker Mice from Mars, that's a good one, Master.
That's a deep cut right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like the
I just think that all these cartoons are great, man, and there are a whole bunch that we didn't even get a chance to talk about that I think are like super great cartoons. I love Teen Titans Go. Every time it's on, I watch it. That's like one of those guilty pleasure comedy shows that I absolutely love. There's just so many cartoons out there. Like, I mean, we all know what we did before The Mandalorian showed up on Disney Plus. We all watched X-Men.
X-Men, yeah.
Right. And that's exactly what people did. My Xbox became an X-Men machine for like 3 whole days.
Yeah.
Then I watched some Darkwing Duck. But like these are
Tailspin
cartoons. These cartoons bring us back to our childhood and they give us our best memories. And I think that we're all pretty much in agreement that this was our entryway into this land of heroes that we all enjoy on a regular basis now. I think the comic books are very much reliant upon cartoons for drawing interest into the hobby. And I couldn't be happier that I'm a comic book collector. And thank you, X-Men.
You know what's a really interesting dynamic in the late 90s as well, that we don't have time to touch on right now, is though animation was really pushed from Asia, Japan, other areas in the late 90s and early 2000s, to the point where they interjected it so much where, oh God, C-Lab, yeah, 2020. Look at it now. Kids are watching animation as their cartoons, some of them. That's the culture now. We've kind of intertwined it. So that 90s, you see that first interjection with some of the video games coming over with the original PlayStation, all that other stuff. So all of a sudden you've got, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, you see cartoons and the way they develop, but all of a sudden in the 90s, it really shakes things up when you get different dynamics thrown in there, and it changed our culture quite a bit.
Absolutely. Chad, any final thoughts on cartoons?
I like them.
All right.
Do you like turtles?
I like turtles. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
No, the cartoons I was gonna say is right now DC still kicking ass on the movies. To your part,
Red Sun. You watched that Red Sun, Chad?
I liked it. Did you?
I haven't seen it yet.
It's pretty good. I'm more excited about the Justice League Dark that's coming out. It's the Apocalypse War. I mean, not Apocalypse.
Oh yeah, that looks good.
Is Constantine in it?
For a minute.
You
Dark Side, the Dark Side Wars. To Andy's point, like if you look at all those animated shows from back in the day, they all had they all went overseas for the animation, like for their openings. I mean, the Turtles did, the X-Men did. You had Quicksilvers, right? Oh, Silverhawks. I mean, Silverhawks, Thundercats.
Yep, they were the same studio.
So, yeah. Transformers, that whole...
Oh, they're more than meets the eye. They're robots in disguise.
The only
Transformers Beast Wars was awful.
The only reason why Voltron didn't land on my list was because it's not based on the comic. The comic is based on the show, right?
Yeah, that was kind of the same way with Transformers. I mean, I could have talked about that whole thing. I think at some point we're just going to have to do animated movies too. Ooh. So we could talk about the Transformers movie and maybe some other things. But yeah, we're going to wrap it up tonight. But as you guys know, if you look at the community tab now, hopefully YouTube has scheduled our vote to come out for next week. Next week, we talked a lot about X-Men, the animated series. So I have a feeling we're going to have a great time next week just talking about X-Men. We're dedicating the entire Modern Men episode 25 to X-Men. So because of that, you guys get to vote on 5 X-Men books for next week. So the first one that was suggested, and I think I just kind of found it in Unlimited, Ultimate X-Men. So we're going to maybe read Ultimate X-Men by Mark Millar, one of the 2 big books that helped launch the X-Men universe. It put Mark Millar on the map. In my opinion, at least. So I'm kind of hoping we may read that. I would like to revisit the Ultimate Universe at some point for my personal reading, but definitely think this is worth revisiting. Next up, and this was my personal pick, X-Men 92. So, we talk about Jim Lee and how much we like the Chris Claremont's rich history of the X-Men. But sometimes, we buy up all these copies of X-Men #1. We buy the first appearance of Omega Red, and we joke about that and that stuff. But when's the last time anyone's actually opened up that first arc of that X-Men and read it and has talked about it? So I kind of want to read this. I mean, it's probably in every one of our collections 5 times over. So I kind of want to read Jim Lee's X-Men. That was my personal pick. It's just something I haven't read probably since the 90s. So I decided to throw it on there and see what's up. And I'm going to let Drew talk about this next one because I know this is one. And like Drew, we only got a couple minutes. Drew. Talk about it.
Speaks for itself.
Yay! Made it short and sweet. All right, we'll keep going. So House Travers of X, Jonathan Hickman, that's on the poll for next week. New X-Men, E for Extinction. Chad, have you had any memories for E for Extinction?
Yeah, that was awesome. With the bird. I can't beak. Right?
Beak. Yeah. Beak.
That was And Angel, that's when he was like super weird.
Yeah, you actually got like a new character that was also called Angel, and you got
Yeah,
Cassandra Nova.
And then Beak was with Angel.
Yeah.
And they end up having a kid or something.
Yeah, they have like a bunch of bird babies. It's pretty crazy in a Grant Morrison type of way. But I kind of like this era of X-Men. It's when the 2000 movie came out. So you had to see the comics adjust even to the point where they kind of match the costumes. And when you call in Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely, which we already reviewed All-Star Superman, so you can expect that quality, definitely check that out. I mean, I kind of want it to win, but I kind of don't, because that means Drew will win 5 times.
Well, I mean, Carson,
this is Drew's pick.
You've spoken so highly about this section of X-Men for some time now that I've been trying to build a run on my own, and I have not read it yet, and I'm excited to read it, and I'm like, this was my pick just based on what you've told me.
Nice. Oh, that's right.
This is the best beast that you ever had.
I threw it out first, and he went with. I threw out.
Wins this Andy pick.
You said, well, not really, because I was the first one to put it in the chat.
I mean,
I don't remember.
I love the beast during this run.
Yeah, that's when we got
5 times. 5 times.
You got the second. Don't say that. My dog can hear you, and he's gonna start spinning around.
No. And then the last pick I put in, I went all new X-Men. Maybe Brian Bendis's last solid run, in my opinion. You bring in the X-Men of the past to kind of rectify the wrongs that Cyclops had made, kind of at the X-Men Schism time. And
But that's awesome. That book's awesome because you get the past, the future, and the present.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of cool themes going on in this book. Did it overstay its welcome? Absolutely. That's why we're only going to focus on the first arc, because the first arc was very solid in my opinion. So
I think that first run was pretty solid all the way through.
Yeah.
Hey,
until they mixed it up and made it blue or whatever the hell it was after that.
Carson, can I share as some things that you need to put on your on the next Modern Men after that?
Okay.
Real quick, right?
Mm-hmm.
These
Batman.
are Chad's suggestions.
Batman the Black Glove,
Oh, that's a good Morrison.
6-Gun Gorilla.
Oh, it actually is a thing. I thought people just wanted 6 gun.
No, the Pro.
Okay.
Oh, the Pro.
Punk Rock Jesus.
That's so
I have
great.
that hardcover. I need to read it.
Winter Soldier, the complete run.
Brubaker.
Superman, Last Son of Krypton.
Oh, Jeff Johns and Richard Donner coming in the comics. You got to love that.
I think my horse is sick.
Chronauts.
Mark Millar, Sean Gordon Murphy. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
His horse is sick. Who
JLA
was that last one?
Tower of Babel. Oh, that was the Return of Superman.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you kind of lagged out there for a second. Reign of the Superman. Yeah, absolutely.
JLA Tower of Babel.
I like it.
Some serious shoulder pads on Batman there.
Final Crisis.
Oh, my horse will be sick for that one.
And then last is an actual book.
Wow.
Super Gods.
But
I do
haven't
need
read
to
it.
read that at
We
some
can't
point.
get JB to read a volume of a comic book. There's no way we're getting him to read a whole book.
I mean, it's pretty good.
I'm
Yeah,
sure it's
that's-
great.
We got Chad from 90MF Comics drinking it in, man. He says, Winter Soldier, Ed Brubaker, Captain America is my favorite Captain America run. Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be a shoe-in for the next poll for sure. I absolutely love that Captain America run.
Put Secret Empire on there as the Dark
And then
Lord.
Thunder House wants Black Glove. A lot of excitement from the chat, from those picks, Chad. Bear Island says there's already 8 votes. That's cool, but he wants. I think he wants to conquer Bendis's X-Men run, so we'll see what happens. He didn't like the Bendis pick. I
See
saw
what's even
earlier.
going on there.
I can't
And
believe
Mastodon says, ask the Uncanny Kyle Walker about that run. Hopefully, like
67% House and Powers at this point, guys. If you guys want me to not get that five-time Modern Men championship, just to go vote against House and
I
Powers.
think Drew has a secret chat of like friends he has. Like, hey, can you vote this for me? Oh, yeah, we
First,
got
you guys are the only friends that I have.
Winter Soldier by Brubaker is one of the best Black Widow stories in modern memory. Oh, absolutely.
You know what? We got to get it on the randomizer at some point. But that Mark Waid, Chris Samney Black Widow run,
Well,
that
Daredevil run they did too.
Yeah.
Very good.
yeah, man.
So it's a very close vote. So I might put in a vote, whatever Drew didn't pick. Probably E for Extinction.
I picked
That's
E for Extinction.
as Andy's pick.
I will screenshot the chat.
Yeah, so yeah.
If you don't throw friends in there.